Um, so, you know, I'm going to put myself like this, and then it'll be easier for people to see me. I've also got some shared screen stuff I have to do with you. Um, so the prints have a certain order, right? Almost always the first print in a set of plans is the site plan or the title page. In a residential set, usually the title page includes the site plan, and it's a C, it's a civic plan. So it usually be C1. Then starts typically, well, the book says structural plans come next because in building, after the site comes the foundation. So you'd think you do the foundation plan. But many architects save the S plans, the structural, which is extra framing plans, foundation plans, till later on, till after the A set. So that varies. It can either go from C to structural, C to S, or it can go C to A. And I've seen more plans that go from C to A. So they have the site plan, this first civic plan, and then they have the architectural plans, which are floor plan, elevations, sections. Let's see what else. Schedules, door and floor schedules, and details. But so that's theoretically how it usually goes. But I'm going to go through the set of plans I handed you out this week real quick and show you how they number their plans in order. Okay. So that means I have to.
Patrick, you said site, civil, and then.
Yeah. So it usually goes the letters C, A, S, or sometimes C, S, A. A and S, the structural S and the architectural A are sometimes inverted.
Okay.
But almost always the site plans first because that locates the house on the site. And so sometimes that's the only civil plan, one print in a set of residential plans. In a, if it's a huge residential plan, like Oprah Winfrey's house in Montecito, or a commercial building, they might have several civic plans because they'll have several site plans. They may have a grading, you know, they have big acreage in those wealthy homes. So they might have more grading plans. I know one of you mentioned you were interested in grading plans. So they might have, you know, several civil plans that are site plans, but there's usually at least one, and it's often the front page one. You'll see that when we go over them.
Is that term interchangeable, civil and site? Do they
No.
basically?
Well, I don't know. Let's see what it says. Civil, on your handout, it says plot plans or site plans. They call it site plan plot plan sometimes. Site grading, which we just mentioned, landscape layout. So you could have a really, if they're doing a really ornate landscape and the architect and builders doing landscaping, they could have a landscape plan too. But it's often just a plot plan. But think of it as separate. Think of the plot plan as a civil plan, not as equivalent. Okay, Alec, that was you, right?
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, yeah. I know, that's why we're going over this, because it gets a little confusing. And it's not real important, except when you've got a big set of plans and you want to find where the structural plans are, you'll need to know what order so you can sort of dive in like halfway or toward the back. Some plans are so big, it will really help you, and I'll try to show you that at some point during this. So let me get the let me go through, if I can. I don't know why this doesn't open. Huh.
Can you open it from your email?
Yeah, I can, but I'll just do it. I can do it one at a time. It's just a little slower. I don't know. I went over it today, but I don't know what happened. Okay, so you can all see this blueprint, yes?
Yes.
So this is one of our sets of plans. It's on the upper right-hand corner. It says Bill Dang Architect. So I usually call it the Dang plans, but the Tri-County, when they copied it, they just used the Appleton Residence as the name. So you see on the right-hand side of this, there's a bar. Some of those conventions that we talked about last week for blueprints, international conventions, is that you have a page with a dark line border all around it. And then on the right, you have a second dark line border that divides up into different boxes for the kind of the administrative information. So it will tell, down at the bottom, it'll tell the page number. So this is architectural plan, page 1. Then it will tell the title. So this is the first floor plan. Then it will tell the Appleton Residence, the name of the project. Then it will tell the architect, which is up here. I guess this might be the draftsman or the architect who did it. But they divide these boxes up differently, but they'll all be in boxes on the right-hand margin like this. So that's something you should be getting used to. So this one doesn't have a plot plan. So this set and the one by Armando Arias, the drafting teacher, I use these, they're two good plans, but they're a special kind of plan. They're a plan that was drawn before the homeowners consented to the project. So the architect does a real simple plan, and then he goes to the homeowner and says, what do you think? So he doesn't want to invest a lot of time in that plan. So he may not do a plot plan that the city needs. And I'll show you why when we look at plot plans next week. They may just do a real basic plan to be able to talk to the client about it. So these plans are often, they don't start with a site plan. It starts with the architectural floor plan. Let's see what a second print is. A2, second floor plan. A3, the schedule list, which is architectural, so that makes sense. Elevations, A4. So those are still architectural plans. And then the only other plan he has is this last one, which is A6. Yeah, A5, he has these interior elevations, but the last one, A6, is a section, and we'll talk about what those are. They're kind of slices through the house, and those are also architectural. So this whole set is architectural because it's a minimal set. So let's go on to another one and see what happens on those. Yeah. Does everybody, no, you don't see the set yet. Because okay, now you can see it, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So we're going to be looking at all these plans throughout the semester. So just get used to it. See, this one has a box on the right. It's even a more minimal box. Tells what the plot plan, see there's civil, Alec, in parentheses. So it says C, even though he called it AO. And he called it AO and the next one A1 because, again, it's a preliminary set and they're not going to do a lot of stuff. This is a site plan, and site plans always have the vicinity map as well. So this is a fairly typical site plan, but usually on site plans, they may not put all these notes. So they vary a bit. But let me talk to you about this AADC. This is the architect's initials, and it stands for Armando Arias del Cid. And he's the drafting teacher. Do any of you have drafting? Somebody said they were taking drafting at school also. Is there anybody there?
That'd be me,
Oh, who's that?
Miguel.
Miguel. So do you have a class by Armando, or have you?
I'm currently taking one with him right now.
Oh, okay. So these are his sets of plan, because he's an architect on the side,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or he's a city college teacher on the side. I forget which it is. But so it's kind of nice to have a set from one of our teachers. But again, it's a real basic set, and it's kind of crammed together because the architect doesn't want to waste paper or just make a big do about it until the owner. And in fact, this owner decided not to go through with the plan, so it was a good thing he didn't put a lot of energy into it. But his first one is AO, and he says plot plan, unless I wrote that in there. It looks like it might be my writing. That's hard to tell. And then the second one is a roof plan, which is hardly ever on a side of a page with a floor plan. Again, he's trying to save room. And then he just calls that one A1 because floor plans are also architectural. And so are elevations. So this is A6. And these are sections, which are A8. And sections are typically architectural and not structural, which is, and then the schedule is A10. So these are all architectural. Now here we have an S2. So he has the structural following the architectural, and these would be details. And details also can be architectural. They're not necessarily S2. So they go back and forth. And then he's got another set of structural, a foundation plan, and that's usually structural. And all the framing plans are structural. And then he's got one more of details and those also are structural details. So you're starting to see how there is an order and an attempt by this international organization to create some kind of order, but then local architects kind of simplify it or number it the way they want to. Now, if an architect was doing a house in Abu Dhabi or someplace in the Middle East, where there's a lot of building going on, and those would usually be big commercial buildings, then they would probably stick more to the international conventions. So the local people in the Arab Emirates could understand the plan. But when it's just a local plan, the architects don't get too obsessed with the numbering, as you'll see. Any questions about that? So if you have a big set of plans and someone says, look at, find me the foundation plan. Well, because you've taken this class, you'll know that foundation plan is a structural plan. And if you know, sometimes at the beginning, they'll actually put an index and they'll show you what order. But you'll know that the structural plan is either right after the civil plan. And if you turn to the first page after the one or two civil pages and it's architectural plans, and they did it in that order, then you skip all those architectural plans and toward the middle of the set, you'll find your structural plans. So it helps you a little bit pinpoint these things. In a little residential set, there aren't that many prints, so it's not so critical. You can find them no matter what. Okay, let me see. Let me see who's here. So So it says there are 19. Oh, yeah, okay. So we have 27 now, students. So,
Where is everyone?
yeah. So I'll let you know right now that I am a human being, if you didn't already know that. And so I know that there are all kinds of reasons for having to skip a class or come late. I totally understand that. But for your information, teachers don't like students not to show up. And you know, some of these students, I have a drop roster, so I have to drop students before that drop roster is due. It's part of my job. So if students are absent the first 2 sessions, I automatically drop them because my drop roster is due that week. So some of these new students are not here yet. Hopefully they'll show up. But anyway, so let's go on to the new lesson. I'll go back. I'll just wait till I get a number of, hopefully some of those, the rest of the, there's a couple of new students here. Hopefully the rest will come, and then I'll go over the Canvas for them, and the rest of you can kind of double check it. So the new lesson is, the first one is the handout set 2, which was called Lines and Symbols. Remember that one?
Symbols.
Lines and Symbols. Did you all read it? John, did you read it?
The one with the plans on the end?
No, it was Unit 4, Lines and Symbols. It was a handout.
The only ones I saw had plans. Am I looking at something wrong?
The did you guys get a handouts that said set 1, set 2, and set 3?
Yeah.
Who said yeah?
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
this is Hugo. I did.
So
Yeah,
it's
I
on
see it
that
now.
one.
I found it.
It's set 3 on that one.
Oh, yeah, no, I read that one.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so so I told you where to find that, but if you didn't take notes, actually, we're going to go to Canvas. We're not going to wait for the other new people. Well, Miguel showed up. So let's go to Canvas, and we'll go over that one more time, and I'll show you where to find the homework assignment. So you can all make sure you read it for class, right?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to nix that plan. Nix that plan. I'm going to go to Canvas. Okay. You all can see my Canvas page?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So when you first go into Canvas, this is what, after the little icon, you get to this page. And the main thing we're going to deal with is modules. At the beginning, you beginning students, go to the announcements. So that would be Miguel Barbosa, Stephen Crook, and Marcos Lopez, and Eric Vega. I know some of you, those are here. So you would go to announcements, and that's where the Zoom is for everybody. Last week's Zoom is on the announcements, but also you see this thing called homepage.
Yep.
So if you click on that, you can't just go to home for some reason. So I want you new students to read this page. It also repeats the Zoom in case you're looking for it, the Zoom link. Then after you read that, go to modules down the middle there. And this will be the page you'll deal most with. There's a course overview. I want you to go there, you new students, and read that. I want you to read this about your instructor. Only if you want to know about your instructor. And for some reason, I can't open it. So there's also Canvas support. If at any time you're having trouble, and it has some access numbers and emails for the campus people that help with Canvas. There's about your instructor. So there's also my telephone number and my email address on there. If you've lost it some other way and you're trying to find it. Okay. So back to modules. So week one, that was last week, January 12th. The school got the starting time mixed up. So I apologize. Some of you are coming late because of that. At January 25th for some reason. So every week there'll be these three boxes. One will be what we're going to talk about. So we talked about Zoom and Canvas and talked about the order of plans and prints. Then every week we have a group discussion, and I want everyone to do this. This is part of your grade. And you flip on this, and it goes to a question. Last week's was, why are each of you taking blueprint reading at this time? So everybody filled out the things, and you can answer separately, like the question's just for you, or you can read the answer before you and bounce off of that question, like any kind of blog. So either way, I don't care, but I want you to respond to it. It'll just be one discussion question. Then on the assignment, this has your reading. So you were to reread the handout for the first class, set 1, and read handouts set 2 and 3 for tonight. And then I also wanted you to have an architect scale for tonight. Okay. And this will always have the reading due for the next week, but it may also have questions. So tonight I haven't filled out these yet. I usually do it after class because then I decide what questions make sense. So tonight I'll have questions that I want you to answer, just a few, and I want you to answer the group discussion. I may not have that till later in the night, so you might have to look at it tomorrow or later in the week. Does everybody understand how this works?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, especially you new people, because the old people know this well enough. And if you want to look ahead at what we're doing, you can do that too. Now, I lied and said there's one more thing I want you to read, and that's the syllabus. Now, I sent you a syllabus. They're similar, but this has a little bit more information. Again, it has the meeting link, has my contact information, office hours. I'll be there at 5:30. If you want to talk to me between then and 6, if it's something you want privacy, just send me an email and a time when you're available, and we can get together, Zoom or not, at that time. So read the course objectives in either one of those syllabus. Yeah, that's pretty much it for that. And then the syllabus I sent you also had a schedule on it. Remember that? And it's the same as the module schedule. It's the same as this schedule. It has the date and what we're going to learn, what you need to read to prepare for. So that you should have on that email that I sent you that has a syllabus. So both places you can remember where you are. All right. So that's it for Canvas tonight.
Hey, Patrick, I had a question.
Yes, please.
would it be possible instead of emailing the attachments to just upload them to Canvas in the module, or is that too difficult?
To the, you mean on this, in the assignment section of the module?
Yeah,
That's what I did last semester, isn't it?
yeah, you did. It was much easier for me to access rather than downloading it from emails. I could pop it up every time.
Okay, okay, I can do that. Let me
Okay.
write it down.
And I think if you upload it, it will send us out an email that you upload it with a link to it. That seems like
Oh,
it
really?
did.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
Oh, I got a question too.
Yeah.
It's about the set plan number 3. Is that last page important? Because I can't really read it. Was that
on
like
the scales,
Yeah.
why can't you read it? The one that says dimension, does it say anything?
No, it doesn't say anything. It's all just kind of blurry.
Does anybody else have that same
Is
thing?
any-
Yeah,
How about the page before?
Page before is fine.
One that has a drawing using scales on it?
yeah.
Yeah, dimensions 1.
Oh, no kidding.
dimension
Yeah, okay, okay. Well, I'll redo that one because I want you to look at it. I'll redo that. So that's good. Tell me if something doesn't come out. I need to know that. But before we get to that, we're going to do the lines and symbols, right?
Mhm.
So okay, can you all see that?
Yeah.
So it says here, reading construction prints begins with an understanding of lines and symbols that appear on drawings. Yeah, okay. So drafters use a defined system of lines and symbols. The different types of lines and symbols are defined and discussed in this unit. So this is another attempt at communicating around the world and universally to obviously use the same lines because it's like a language, you've got to have a common language here. So property line is the line of the, this doesn't have it, we'll have to find one. It's on, I'll show you that later. But the property line is what it says. It's the line that separates that lot from its neighboring lots. And it's a line map of long dashes. We'll look at it. The border line is part of the paper. It doesn't have anything to do with what print it is. It's just they take a white piece of paper and they put a border all around it. Object line are lines that are just the lines that are drawing, like the walls of the house or the fireplace or the chimney or the cabinets. Hidden lines, sometimes a line is underneath something and you can't see it from that view, but to show that it's under there, they'll put a broken line. We'll look at that. Center line we'll look at. Dimension lines are the way they show dimensions, and we'll just look at those. So let's go to,
Hey, Patrick, I have a random question.
shoot.
Are blueprints public record?
Yes.
So if I wanted to go to the city hall and request to see the blueprints to the house that I live in, I could do that.
I think. I'm not positive.
Just curious.
I think you
Thanks.
can, because years ago, I wanted to find a house I wanted to get a set of prints for a house, an old house. And it was in the city, and they sent me to a place a couple blocks from the building department. And it was an archive, and it had all the plans from Santa Barbara for the whole history. And you could go and order them from there.
Cool.
Yeah. So we're gonna, this is the educational set of prints, like I told you. And we'll kind of start with these, and then we'll go on to see the variations in real sets. But this has a, on the left here, on this site plan, it's got a lot of those lines we just talked about. So here's the property line.
Are we supposed to be seeing something?
Yeah, you got to tell me. Okay. That's so weird. You see that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
I thought I did that, but. Okay, so on the left here, can you see, you can see the mouse too, obviously, yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So here's the property line, right?
Mhm.
That demarcates the lot here. And that's the symbol for it, a long line and then two short dashes and a long line. That's one line. Here's a setback line. Setback means the minimum distance you have to leave between, usually it's a building, but it could be a, no, this is for the building. This is the setback line. The house isn't up to it because it didn't need to be. But over here, it's a little closer. But this wall of this house couldn't be inside of this line here, the setback, because it has to be 15 feet from this boundary line. So that wasn't listed in that list, the setback line. And, you know, a good set of plans will list what the line is, so you don't have to guess. You know, property boundary line, rear building setback line, construction silt fence. So these have a land construction area. Obviously, you might have more divisions than is standard. You know, not every house is in a conservation zone. So so the fact that they will tell you what it is helps. So well, we'll look at a site plan next week. That's going to be part of our unit. But site plans, well, they do have dimensions on them. You see that right there, that 10'8"? But they're just like along the wall. They don't involve extension lines and the whole kind of dimensioning. We're going to look at that in particular. So let's go back. Now, Lindsay.
Yep.
When I have the whole screen, I didn't need to do it then because it was only part of that, but a lot of times I'll have the whole screen. You can't see my face then, right?
I can. Yep, I can see you.
When I have the whole screen?
Yep, I can see you. Yeah.
Okay, let me ask John, because you've got a slightly different setup than John. So John, when I'm going through this full screen Zoom share, can you see my face anywhere?
Yes, I can. I have about 5 people on the right-hand side I can see.
Oh, okay. See, I don't have that on mine. You guys go away all together. Okay, well, it's good. I'm glad. Okay. Boy, how would you ever know all this, you know? Okay, because I'm just speaking to, from my screen's full of whatever I'm sharing. So I don't get your reactions and of course, Hugo can't see my lips, but then he's got, he could see it there. And Lindsay's there she can hear it. You can hear it, right? So Lindsay can hear it and sign. Okay. Now, now that I noticed, I just brought this up. This has a legend and it defines all the lines. That's a lot of lines, huh? Some of these lines are the same. They're just solid lines, but they're interrupted by the symbol of what they are. So G for gas, E for electric.
Can't
And-
see anything on the screen.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. No, that's okay.
You're right. I'm not sharing that. So see down at the bottom here, we have that legend.
Yep.
And it'll define everything. So you don't have to memorize it because it will differ. So for instance, these lines are all the same actually, and you wouldn't know what it was, but they will interrupt it with what it's called, or they'll put an arrow to it. See, you can see the G and E here. So you just have to look for what it is, and then you go down and say, oh yeah, okay, it's an electric line. So usually plans will have a legend that defines lines and symbols.
So is a land conservation area in this a creek behind the house, I'm guessing? There's a
Yeah, it
creek
could
down
be.
there?
Yeah. Or it could be a forest, or some kind of green space or wilderness space.
Maybe it's a farm.
Maybe it's a what?
A farm.
Maybe. Okay, so let me do that. And let's go back to, we're on set 2, right? Okay, back to set 2. So let's skip through. So this shows the lines again. Property line, border line, object lines, just, a shape of something. Center line, but again, these will be obvious. This section line is important, but when we look at sections, we have a whole unit on that. We'll discuss what these mean, but they're special kinds of lines. And then dimension lines, we're going to get more into this tonight because we're talking about using a scale and dimensioning things. And I'll describe this right here, and then we'll look at it more in the chapter that's coming up, the set 3. So dimension lines are the actual lines that go between extension lines. So say that there's a building right here and they draw these extension lines. They don't touch the building. I'll show you in a minute in a real plan, but they just go out so that there's something the arrows can go to. So it's the width of the building. So these extension lines will extend from the building, and then they'll have a dimension line in between, and they'll have the dimension to the top or bottom of that. And there's been an evolution of endpoints to these lines. Originally, they were arrows, and a lot of people still use arrows. So the arrow points to that line. So it's between that line and that line. If there's not enough room for an arrow in here, sometimes I'll put the arrow on the outside. So even if this wasn't here, you might put an arrow on the outside to show that 8 inches is that space in there. This has got little tiny dots. Nobody does that. They're too hard to see. People usually don't use these little computer arrows, but these slashes that we're going to call these, they call them ticks sometimes on computers, or slashes. This has become more common. So mostly it's a slash and an arrow are the two alternatives. We'll look and see what the various plans have. Symbols, they'll usually the page, like the plumbing page, plumbing plan will have its own box of, table of symbols. So you don't have to memorize an international set. Same with this. Every book that gives these symbols, they're often outgrown because plumbing's done differently or climate control is done differently. And so they're usually out of date fairly soon. So this is more to give you an example of what things are doing. And we'll look at the ones that are on sets of plans, but a very contemporary set of plans like's been done in the last year may have some new symbols or alternate some of these symbols, but they will have a table somewhere on the plans and you can always double check, make sure you're understanding the symbol the right way. These right here are just examples in this book. There's landscape symbols, topographical, they call them, like for sand or gravel or grass or dense forest. And those will also be in a key somewhere on the thing. This is to give you an example. Trees are done in different ways. Some of these are pretty fancy, huh? I like that one there. So, and you know, it'll usually describe it as a tree. And then this is a whole bunch of symbols. And again, abbreviations. And again, these can change over time. So if you have a set of plans, you can use this. This was out of a drafting book, but the drafting book's 10 years old. You can use these, and probably many of these are still used, and there might be additions. And a lot of times they don't spell out what LP means or LLH on a plan, and it's very frustrating. And you may not even find it on here either. So you'll have to like look through the setup. Sometimes I've ended up going through every page and looking at every freaking square inch to find, you know, what the symbol means. So I included these just so, you know, you can use these if you get stuck on a symbol. Okay, so everybody's good with that, yeah?
Yeah.
So now we come to the fun part. Did everybody remember to bring their scale, their architect scale with them?
Yep.
Okay. Not the end of the world if you didn't, but we will probably go over this again. I don't know, maybe next week, because this is really important to understanding drawings, to be able to measure. So we'll go over it tonight. And then for those of you who couldn't get one yet or came in late, we'll go over it again because it's really important. So we'll start it tonight. So let me get the set 3 here. Okay, everybody's got unit 8 on their screen?
Yes.
Okay. That was a collective yes. So here's another drawing of extension lines and dimension lines with the fancy arrows. You know, a lot of times architects use arrows because they can be, architects have signature draftsmanship, and a lot of times they have various unique ways of doing things that kind of tells you who the architect is. So a lot of them will do very fancy arrows. So they still like that. Here's a bigger dot, but I haven't seen those. So I don't know who uses those. And here's the slash again, the tick. That's used. You want something that's going to define a point, that point right there on the line. And the tick hits where the lines meet. So that's a pretty good symbol. Nobody uses this because this could look like a building line or an object line, you know, corner. So that's kind of not very used, very much used. Okay, so now get your scales out. I hope you all got architect scales and not engineer scales. We're going to talk about engineer scales, but there's so little use in a set of plans. I didn't want you to have to buy a set just to know that. But are you all looking at your scales?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so you'll see it at the right and left side of each particular scale. There's the unit, the basic unit is divided into little subunits, right?
Yep.
So go to the 1.5" scale.
Inch and a half. No.
Got it?
Yeah.
Takes a little time to find.
Let's see.
Everybody there?
Inch and a half. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So if the scale is big, like this is a big scale, I think the 3 inches, the one next to it, are the biggest on the ruler. If they're big scales, they have a lot of room in there to divide up those units, right? So they can actually put numbers down to even to name some of the divisions. So this goes from 0, 3, 6, 9, 12. So what are those numbers? Anybody?
Inches.
Inches.
The big numbers are inches.
Yeah, the numbers are inches. So so this has between 0 and 3, it has, if you follow the longer marks between 0 and 3, it creates 3 divisions, right? So each of those is going to be an inch, yes?
Yes.
And then, so that means between one of those long marks, between the 0 and the 3, there's another one that's not quite as long. So that's going to be 1/2 inch, right? And then the littlest tick is going to be 1/4 inch. Do you all see that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, what I always do is I always go to the first number, if there is a number, and count the things in between. And I just figured out by looking at it. But this list that's on the screen right now tells you what the smallest marks mean in each thing. So we were just doing 1.5 inches. So it says the smallest mark would be 1/4 inch. So when you're measuring something, it might be 1 foot 3 1/4 inches, right? So you would need that 1/4 inch mark. When it's a bigger scale, like go to the 1/4 inch scale. It's on the right-hand side. You have to flip it around. Have you found, can you find it?
Yeah.
So you got to have good eyes or your glasses on because these lines get, the smaller the scale, the ticks get really close together. So you can see that if you take the major division before 0 on that 1/4 inch scale, that's going to be 1/2 foot, right? These are all in inches. So that's going to be 6 inches or 1/2 foot because it's that whole division is 1 foot. So the halfway point is 6 inches, right?
Yep.
Then what's half of that's going to be 3 inches, right? And how many marks are between the 3 inch mark and the end? Or how many spaces
On the 1/4 inch.
on the 1/4 inch? Yeah. So this would be the smallest tick.
2?
What was that?
You're saying, you're asking how many spaces are between. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm not sure.
No, that's okay. I just re-asked it a different way. Just take the smallest division. What does that represent?
Each tick is an inch, right?
Yes. That's what I want. So they're not always that way. We just look where each tick was 1/4 inch, but on a 1/4 inch scale, each tick is an inch. So on that space between 0 and the right, it gives 6 inch, that's the longer mark, 3 and 9 inches, those are longer marks, and then the marks in between are for the inches. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
So you can count up all the spaces. So let's see, there's 3, 6, 9, 12 spaces. You can count them up. That's another way to do it. Just count up the spaces and whatever it is. If there's 12 of them, then you know it's an inch. If there's 24 of them, you know they're going to be 1/2 inch. Okay. So So that's the first thing we have to do is realize that the divisions of 1 unit, of 1 foot. So let's go back to this. You can't,
Sorry, Professor, can I interrupt you quickly?
absolutely.
I just want to get Katie to be able to multi-pin as well. Just 1 second so interpreters can get settled, if you don't mind.
Oh, not at all. Is she here?
Yes.
Do I see her? I'm looking. She's not here yet, right?
Oh, is she not there? She had just texted me and told me she can see you, but she can't see Hugo or myself. Huh. Okay.
Well, in order to
That's okay.
unpin her, I have to have her.
Yeah, I'm not sure where she is, but we can keep
Okay.
going. Sorry. about
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No, as soon as you see her, let me know and I'll come back and do that. So let's talk about scale, what this means for a second. When you've been using this for 50 years like I have, oh my God, that sounds terrible, doesn't it? Half a century of using these, you don't even think about it anymore. So when I explain it, sometimes I explain it too fast. If you're beginning, this could be quite a mystery. So I'll go back and forth when I think I'm getting into the weeds too much. I'll go back, I'll scale back and talk about it in general, okay? Now, some of you already know how to use these and are using them in your work. Just have patience. What you can do is make sure I'm explaining it right. So if we didn't have such thing as scale, we would have to have a piece of paper the size of our house, the size of the dimensions of the house, a 30 by 50 house. We'd have to have a 30 by 50 piece of paper, and we draw everything the same size as the house. The walls would be 6 inches. Now that's going to be a little inconvenient, right? I'll answer for you. Yes. So humans came up with the idea of scale. So we can scale down. So we can let a small quantity stand for a big quantity. That's a pretty abstract notion, you know. It took humans quite a while to figure that out. You know, we didn't have scaled plans the whole time we've had civilization. It actually came partway through the whole course of civilization. So it's not that obvious. Once we got it, we were able to refine it and go forward. And this is the end product. Has a bunch of scales on one thing. So a scale, so the word scale has many meanings. It can mean this instrument is called a scale, an architect's scale. And there's an engineer's scale. They don't call this a ruler, even though it has the same function of a ruler. Okay, and it has a 12-inch ruler on it too. But this is called a scale, S-C-A-L-E. Then the word scale also means to scale something, to make a small quantity stand for a big quantity, be a scale part of that. And it has to be quantified. You have to do with numbers. So if it was a half scale, you'd take something and you'd cut all the dimensions in half and draw them. And you might be doing a woodworking thing and you could get away with that. Houses are bigger, however. They're of the size that you have to have even smaller scales. So so what they do in this kind of scale is they make inches equal to feet, because we have inches and feet at least in the US and parts of Canada. There's a whole metric system out there that's different, but we won't talk about that tonight. But in feet and inches, so if we have a scale that says a 1/4 inch equals 1 foot, that means a 1/4 inch on this ruler, which is, if you get your 1/4 inch scale, it's that little 0 to 1. It's literally a 1/4 inch wide. That stands for 1 foot in the real world or on the house. So if a house is 10 feet, got a 10-foot long wall, then it's going to be 10 quarters. On here, you just count off 10. So 10 quarters is 2.5 inches. So 2.5 inches will be where we draw that 10-foot wall. So does everybody get the basic idea of a scale? We're scaling
Yeah.
down, and you could scale by just proportion. You could say this is half the size of something, or this is the 10th of the size of something. But because we use feet and inches in the United States, we use fractions of inch scales. It's just the most convenient way. So for a floor plan and elevations and a lot of the plans, we will use a 1/4 inch scale. And as we go to each plan each week, we'll note the scale so you all remember. The civil plan or the plot plan is actually done in 2 different scales. Sometimes it's done in an 1/8 inch scale because you need that small size to get the whole lot on the page on the blueprint. If you used a 1/4 inch, you can get the floor plan, but you couldn't get the yard, especially if you had a big yard. So plot plans are always either an 1/8 of an inch to a foot, or for some weird reason, they're engineering scales. 1 inch equals 20 feet. 1 inch equals 40 feet. I'll show you one of those scales later. So they use them for plot plans, which is really screwy because if you're a builder and you want to measure something, you may not have an engineer scale with you. Now I'll show you later on. It's easy to use a regular ruler to mimic oh, there she is, to mimic an engineer scale. Hi, Katie. We'll go down to.
Everybody.
Okay, you're multi-pinned. Okay, so where were we? Yeah, so then there are the scales are kind of made for what they did when they made this system a century ago or whenever they did it. They said, well, we want something to draw a house on or a lot. We want a scale that will fit into a size print, size paper that we can handle easily. We don't want a giant thing like a Persian carpet. We want just a little 2x3, say 2 foot by 3 foot print. And then we can bring it to the work site and we can thumb through it. So they figured out that, well, houses will have to be 1/4 inch scale. That will fit a floor plan pretty easily onto a regular thing. Sometimes you have giant houses and you'll have to use several pages or you'll have to reduce the scale. But for a typical middle-class residence, 1/4 of an inch to a foot will fit on a blueprint this size. Okay. So that's another convention, the size. They're usually I think they're 2x3. Is that right? I've got a handy ruler here. I'll let you know.
Yeah, I think
24
by 36.
by 36, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they make different size prints. That's standard. And most residences have that. For big commercial buildings, I've seen them use slightly bigger prints. And sometimes they'll have odd sizes, but 2 feet by 3 feet is standard. So for most houses, you can get the floor plan, a 1/4 inch scale onto the sheet handily. The site plan, you can't. That's not a big enough sheet to do a 1/4 of an inch. So you have to go to either a smaller scale, an 1/8 of an inch, or an engineer scale, which is small like that, to fit that whole property as well as the home on the print. That's pretty obvious, yeah? So elevations are also a 1/4 because they follow the floor plan. If you just stood the floor plan up, you'd have an elevation. So they fit on a sheet okay. But sometimes we want details that a 1/4 of an inch to a foot is too small a scale. We can't see it clear enough. And then we use larger scales. So detailed pages can have up to a 3 inch to a foot scale or 1.5 to a foot scale. And when we look at details, we'll look at those. But there'll be a page and the page will be divided into boxes, and each box will have a bigger scale. So it'll just be a small section of the house that you want to detail, and you'll do it in an 1.5 or 3-inch scale. We'll show you those. So it'll take that bigger scale to reach the detail you need to look at. So it all works out pretty good. You've got all the scales will fit on that 2 foot by 3 foot page. And when we go over each type of print, we'll show you what the scales are and how it works. Okay. So I can go back, yeah? Okay, so let's look at the engineer scale for a second. Everybody can see this page?
Yes.
So here's a, they'll have a scale, and on the triangle, they'll have 1 inch equals 40, 1 inch equals 60, 1 inch equals 20. So if, so you can use a regular ruler, right? Which has inches. And for that ruler, 1 inch would be 20 feet. Yeah. So a 20 by 40 house would be 1 inches by 2 inches on your plot plan. Now, if you wanted, if you go to a 1 inch equals 10 feet. Well, let's go back to the 1 inch equals 20 feet. So what would a 1/2 inch, so 10 feet on that plan would be a 1/2 inch, right?
Yeah.
And 5 feet on that plan would be a 1/4 inch, yeah? A quarter of 20 is 5.
Yep.
So that way you can just take this and divide it in half multiple times, any of these, and figure out what numbers will match that scale. If you have the scale, fine, you can just use that 1 inch equals 20 on the engineer scale, like this one. This isn't it here. They don't have a picture of it, engineer scale. I don't think. Yeah, here we do. So here's 10, here's the smallest one, 10 inches, 1 inch equals 10 feet. So that's how you do it. That'd be 10 feet, 9 feet would be there, 8 feet, 7 feet, 6 feet, 5 feet. So you can do individual feet with that one. And if it was a 30-foot house, this would be the edge of it. So if the house didn't go on and on, you could probably use a 1 inch equals 10 feet scale on the site plan. But remember, on a site plan, you've got all this extraneous stuff like, the boundaries, the yards next to it, the environmental surrounding areas. So usually it's going to be 1 inch equals 10 or 1 inch equals 20. Okay. Everybody's got that, yeah?
Yep.
Hey, Patrick, I had a question. Have you ever gotten a set of plans where they actually use engineering scale?
Yeah, all the time. The site plan is often in engineering scales, which is really kind of a pain in the butt.
That's
They'll
interesting.
have dimension lines, right? On the building lines they'll have dimensions, so you don't need to use that scale for the general dimensions. But if you want an in-between dimension or one that's not marked, then you'll have to use that scale. Yeah. Okay, well, we'll look at site plans coming up. We'll look at a bunch of them and see what they do. So now comes the hard part. Yeah. Everybody ready for that? And I don't like the book's description, so. Okay. I'm gonna find my scale. I lost it. There it is. You can read the explanations in your, see, reading a customary scale. Okay, look at this page 4 here before I go off this and just talk to you about it. This is a 1/4 inch scale. Right there is a 1/4. And the line we want is 6'3". Either we're going to put a 6'3" line on a plan, or we've just measured something that's 6'3". So it goes from 0 to 6. That's the 6 foot part of it. And then instead of going 3 inches this way, you go 3 inches on that first divided up scale. Now, the reason they do that, there's a method for this, is because if you didn't do it this way, and I'll show you more how it's done, you'd have to have dividing lines all the way across, right? Think of what a ruler would look like if it had this degree of lines all the way across it. Your mind would go nuts reading it. So they figured out a way to leave this pretty clear so you can go to find the individual feet pretty fast. And then when you want to find inches, you have to go to the right of the 0. So there's a technique to put it down that utilizes this arrangement. And so it's not the usual way we do things. So that's why we have to talk about it. So hello. So how many of you have a piece of paper in front of you and a pencil? Okay, because we're going to draw something with this. Usually I have a set of plans in class. We all have a set, and we can just go right to the plan with the ruler, but we're not doing that. And you know what happened is when I got all that set of plans that we normally use, and I put them on, I had Tri-County put them on that zip drive, it changed the dimension of it. So so I put my ruler up to the screen, and none of the house plans have the right scale. So, which is too bad. So we're not going to have that advantage. But so on page 3, how many of you have your handout printed out on a hard copy in front of you? Any of you? Yeah, John does.
Yeah.
Okay, so go to page 3 in that set 3. And there's a line, there's a scale at the bottom, 3/4 inch scale. And then there's 2 extension lines, and there's a dark line between them. You see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's got to be on paper or it's not going to work. And some of you new people probably don't have them downloaded yet. So just hang in there. So that's at least something we all have in common. Now take your regular ruler and measure that dark line. Tell me what you get. Now, see, here's where a teacher assumes everybody can use a ruler. In summer, sometimes I teach a local high school class, and not all my students can use a ruler. So it's not even something we can assume anymore. So can anybody read that length of that line?
I didn't have that one printed out.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Is it 5 and
Anybody?
a half, Patrick?
5.5? 5.5 inches?
Yeah.
That you printed out?
Yeah.
Wow, does anybody else have that? Yeah, that's the one. Alec, go ahead and measure that top line. Do you have your scale?
Yeah, I think it's 3.5.
Yeah, that's, well, I get
Like
So-
3 and
7/16.
7.
3 and 7/16. Yeah, that's what I get. So
Which line are you talking about measuring, Patrick? Maybe I'm measuring.
it's on page 3,
Uh-huh.
and it's
On set 3?
yeah, on set 3. And it's on the page that says engineer's scale. It says 101 at the top or 3 at the bottom. It's got a picture of a ruler, and then it's got some dimension lines above it. Dimension line says 6'7".
What do you get, Patrick?
Well, I'm just asking you to, I'm not asking you to scale it. I'm just asking you to measure with a regular ruler. So if you have your scale, if you had a architect scale, it has a regular ruler on it. It says 16 on the left. So I'm just asking you to measure that dark line on top with that ruler.
I'm printing it now.
Okay, Dylan, did you just show me that picture, or was that Miguel? Somebody just showed me the picture. So far, Alec and I have the same. See, we have to all have the same line, and then we can talk about, then we can measure with different scales. But unless we have a common line, we can't share it. And, you know, this is the result of not being able to use live blueprints together. So we just got to figure this out as we go. So does anybody else have a printed version of that handout? Well, there's only two, there's only two answers you can give. One's yes. Guess what the other one is?
Maybe.
Did you say maybe, Eric? Okay. So I'm assuming it's no. Rainey. Or Jackson's your first name, right?
Yeah.
Do you have a scale? Do you have a scale and paper?
No, I don't have I didn't get the scale yet.
Okay. Ryder, do you have a scale?
Yes, I have one, but I unfortunately do not have a printer where I'm living, so I don't have
Okay,
that stuff
that's
printed
fine.
out, but I do have the scale.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so here's an idea. I got a great idea. Thanks to Ryder. If you have your scale, more of you have scales than have the printout of the handout. And I told you that it's not necessary to have that handout because a lot of you don't have printers. Especially with the COVID, you can't go to some places you used to go to get prints. So that's fine, we'll work around that. So if you have a pencil and paper though, if you don't have one, next time, always bring it to class because we're going to do stuff like this. So what you could do with the paper is draw a line 3 7/16 long on that paper. So 3 7/16 is one little 16th under 3.5. If you need help with that. Can everybody do that?
Do you want this line vertical or horizontal?
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
We're,
Okay.
we're just gonna measure it with other scales. So whatever, I think it's horizontal, it's easier to work with, but you know, it doesn't matter. We're gonna measure that length with different scales, so we're all in the same boat. So John, are you doing that? John Tapia?
Yeah, I'm printing right behind me. So 3 and 7/16.
Okay,
Yeah,
Eric Mendez,
Yeah,
you have
Patrick,
it?
I was measuring the wrong one. I did get 3 and 7/16.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Jose Silva, do you have your line?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Okay, so now take your 1/4 inch scale, right? And put it, now the scales are on different sides. The 1/4 inch is starts on the right side and goes to the left. You see that? Okay, here's a point I want you to note. This scale or ruler has, we call these registers. One scale is called a register. So each register actually has 2 scales on it. One starts from the right and goes to the left with the numbers, and the other starts on the left and goes to the right with the numbers. And they take scales that are double the size of each other or half the size, and they combine those because they can use a lot of the same lines because they're half the scale. So you'll notice with a 1/4 inch, the other scale is 1/8 of an inch, half of it. With the 3-inch scale, it's 1 1/2 on the other side, half of that. 3/4 and 3/8, 3/16 and 3/32. So they're all 1 and 1/2. They're all either a multiple or a half of each other, multiple of 2 or a half. So that's something to know. So the 1/4 inch, we're taking that for now, and that starts on the right because and you'll see the number 1/4 is on the right of your scale. Does everybody see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you've got 2 registers there, 2 sets of numbers. That's very confusing. It can be very confusing. So if you're going from left to right for the 1/4 scale, you find out where the 0 is because that's your first number. The 0 will only be, the 0 there will be the 0 for that scale for 1/4 inch. So then the next number will be 1 or 2. Sometimes it skips a number. So you see it goes 0, 2, 4 on the bottom scale. Do you see that? The bottom register. So the 1/4 inch register are the bottom numbers going to the left, from right to left. If you were doing an 1/8 inch scale, like on a floor plan, on a plot plan, you would start on the 1/8 inch on the left and its 0 is on the upper scale. So you go 0, and there's not a number till 4. Sometimes they skip numbers because they don't have a lot of room to write. But you can see it goes 0, 4, 8, 12. It keeps going up. So that's how you find which set of numbers you're going to count. And it can get confusing. So start with the scale with 1/4, and then find that 0, and then find out which upper or bottom that register is. In this case, it's the bottom. So just read the bottom numbers. Just sort of forget the top numbers. Everybody got that so far?
Yeah.
So, this is how we use that. This is how we measure fractions of feet or inches using a scale. Take that line you made on your paper. Take your 1/4 inch scale and put 0 next to the 1/4 inch. Line that 0 line up to the right end of your line. So I'm going to start on the right side, and I'm putting the 0 right at the end of that line. Has everybody got the scale on that place?
Yes.
Then you're going to read down the scale toward the left end of that line. And it's going to be not quite the 14. Remember, you're only reading the bottom numbers. So that line's not quite 14 feet long, right? Those numbers stand for feet. 1/4 inch equals a foot. So it falls short of the 14, so it's going to be less than 14 feet long, yeah? So so what's it going to be? What's the foot less than 14? This is a
13.
quiz. 13. So you just go by even feet. If it's not quite 14, then it's going to be 13 something, right? So then you put the 13 on the left-hand side. Now, the tricky part is it marks 14 and then it marks a line with no number and then it has 12. So you have to interpolate. So the 13 will be between the 14 and the 12. Right?
Yes.
So it's not marked 13. They don't have enough room to put all the numbers down there. But it's the line between 14 and 12. So you set that line on the left-hand side of the line you drew. Then you go to the right, and lo and behold, the right-hand side is in the middle of those little ticks. Yeah? So all you're going to do is read off those ticks. Yeah, you read off those ticks, and that's going to tell you how many inches plus 13 that length of that line is. So to me, we're all going to look at this differently. Quarter inch, the ticks are really small, but I would say it looks like maybe 9 of them. 3, 6, 9.
I got 13, 10. But
Okay,
yeah.
you see 10. Well, John's wrong. So 13, 9. Now we'll often have a disagreement between the one next to it. It's hard to see, but it's going to be 13 foot 9 inches or 10 inches. So write that above your line, 13 foot 9, let's say 9, because I know I'm right, 9 inches.
Hey, 13 foot 9.5. Come on, guys.
So see, this is why you need those bigger scales, because if something really did, say it was 9 1/4, we'd never be able to see it on this scale. We'd never be able to tell. It's too fine. So then we have to go to so if we wanted to draw that so that you could actually see it, we have to use a much larger scale. Okay, so this is the process. So we'll do it with another scale. We'll do it a few times until you learn it. It's counterintuitive, but they do it so they won't have to have little ticks all the way across the scale and make it miserable to read. It's very thought out and it's very logical, but it's counterintuitive, so it takes a little while to finish it. So let's take another scale. Let's take a 1/2 inch scale. So it's on the right. So everybody look for their 1/2 inch scale. You guys are forcing me to drink coffee, of course.
Of course.
So you got the 1/2 inch?
Yep.
Okay. So what are we going to do? We're going to put, it's also on the right, so we can do it the same way as we did the quarter. We'll do a left-hand one pretty soon to finish it off. You're going to put that 0 right on the right end of that line. Then you're going to look down. Now, the 1/2 inch is the top scale, yes? And it goes from, look at that scale, 1/2 inch scale, it goes from 0, 2, 4 on the top. Don't pay attention to the 10, 9, 8. Those are going down, so it must be from the scale on the other side. So we're going to use the top scale, and it's not quite to 7. Yeah? Now, this is a coincidence that only happens a few times on a scale, that the 7 on the bottom scale is the same as the 7 on the top scale. So set the 0 there, and then notice that the line goes 6 plus, almost to 7. So that length of that line is going to be 6 foot high, like 8 or 9 or 10. So now take the 6 and put it on the, because that's what you're going to start with. put the 6 number itself on the left-hand side of that line and look back and see where in that field of ticks, small ticks, that is going to reach. And mine looks like, oh, I don't know, 9, 10, a little more than 10, 6'10", John?
6'10.5".
Okay, let's say 6'10", because that's marked, half isn't marked. So we'll say 6'10". Is everybody able to do that way? If you're confused, let me know and we'll keep doing it. And then
Wait.
we'll do it.
A half is marked on 1/2-inch scale. Each one is a 1/2 inch.
Yes. That's right. That's good. That's the kind of surprises that these things are full of. That's totally right. So every scale, 1/4 inch will have little 1/4 inch scales. They'll also have eighths because the numbers coming the other way, can divide it. But they will be marked mainly with the size of the scale in 1/2-inch segments in this case. Okay, let's take a left-hand one. So let's do 1 inch. Same place on the ruler, but starting at the left. And we're going to put the 0 on the left end of that line. Same idea, but scales on the other end. So we got to start with the left. Put the 0 on there and go to the right, and we get, oh, first of all, what top or bottom register are we using? The way you can tell is you look at which numbers are going up. On that inch scale, the bottom ones are going up. 1, 2, 3, 4. See that? So it's the bottom scale you're going to use. You're always going to use the numbers that are going up. Do we have that? Okay, so we got the 0 on the left-hand side of the line. And if we look over it, it goes 1, 2, 3, not quite 4, not quite even 3.5. So it's a 3 inches something. 3 inches plus, or 3 feet rather, these are feet. 3 feet plus some number of inches. So now we get to determine that. So we're going to put the 3 on the right-hand side because we discovered it was under 4, so it's got to be 3 foot something. So we're going to put the 3 even with the right-hand side, and then we're going to look at where that end of that line hits in that field of tick marks.
I'm getting
And it
5.5.
looks-
Is that right?
I'm about.
Well, I would
halfway
go
between-
5 1/4, but somewhere in there.
I'm halfway between 5 1/4 and 5.5, I think. But
Yeah,
5
I see
1/4.
5 1/4, but 5.5 is fine, but that's right. So,
Wait, you
how we
got
doing? How we
you got-
doing?
5.5 and in between 5.5, 5 1/4 on the 1 foot scale.
Yeah. 3 foot, 5.5, right?
Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, don't
I-
forget to add the feet.
Yeah, no, okay. I thought you meant 5.5 feet. That's what threw me off.
Yeah, sorry. Well,
There
that's
you go.
good though. That's good. You bring those things up because it means I didn't quite say it right, or you got this case I probably didn't say it right, but it's easy to get confused. So keep bringing that up because that's how we're going to learn. So the 3's on the right, so it's going to be 3 foot, and then the little ticks are the inches, 3 foot, and it's past 5 a little bit, 1/4 or 1/2. 3 foot 5.5 will be that length of that line. How we doing? One more from the left. Anybody got a favorite scale? Let's take 3/4 of an inch.
That's a pretty solid scale.
Yeah. Yeah. So we put it's a left-hand scale. It starts at the left. So we put the 0 on the left-hand side of the line, of our line. And we count, it's going to be the bottom scale because the bottom scale goes from 0, 1, 2, 3 goes up. So it'll be the bottom numbers. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, not quite to 5, over 4.5, but not quite to 5. So it'll be 4 foot something. And then we go to 4, then we slide the rule over so that 4 foot's equal to the right side, even with the right side. And then that'll put the left side in the thicket of hash marks. And it looks like 6, 7, would you say?
7.5. I'm right on 7.5.
Yeah, I'm kind of on, let's see.
I'm pretty close on 7, but mine may be different.
I think you
I
guys
get
have
set-
different lines.
I get, I get 7 too, but it doesn't matter. It's close enough. So that would be 4 foot 7, right? Don't forget the
Yeah.
feet. 4 feet 7, or 7.25, whatever you read. You know, this right away shows you the importance of drawing really clearly and really exactly when you make blueprints. Because if it's sloppy at all, then you won't be able to see the difference between 10.25 and 10.5 and 10. Fortunately, on plans, the major dimensions are put on the plans already. And we're going to look at why we need to might need to use a ruler in a second. So we're going to stop with that. And we're going to, for the 6 people who didn't show up, whose houses were all on fire or their dogs got away, we're going to repeat this for them next week, and it'll reinforce it for you, because you may just have it tentatively and not that strongly. Some of you probably get it right off, but it is kind of unusual. It's a whole new art of measuring things. What do you think? Would you rather have a scale with the lines all the way across? Some of those lines are pretty small. Look at the 1/8 inch. Think of all those lines all the way across. Okay. What does the master lesson plan say? Hey, can you guys go another 15, 20 minutes without a break? Or do you want, or you're at your wit's end and you want to take a break?
Sure.
Keep going?
Yeah, keep going.
Yeah,
Okay,
might as
so,
well.
yeah, we're pretty close anyway. But remember, if it's too much information, you need a break, let me know, even if it's just one of you, and I'll do a break, at 7, halfway through, or at 7:30, or anytime. It's you guys, you have to just decide how you can learn best. It's at night, we're all tired. Looking at these little rulers is going to drive us all crazy. Okay. So let's go to a set of plans. Yeah. And just look at what the dimensions look like. So what do I need here? Need to get rid of that. Oh, stop sharing maybe. Hold on. Nope. God. Okay. Okay, you see this first floor plan?
Yes.
This is on that first tempo 1, that first set of plans I gave you, the educational set.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've made a really kind of clean, simple set of plans. they do put in some squirrely stuff like foyer screen elevations, which wouldn't necessarily go, but they're trying to save room. But it's a clean set of plans and it illustrates a lot of interesting things. So everybody can see at the left here, this garage. So one of the conventions of dimensioning is that you put the largest dimension to the outside of the what you're measuring. So this rear end of the garage, the longest dimension is the total width, which is 22 feet 0 inches. Then if you have smaller dimensions, like this one shows the center line of the window, which is, we'll talk about that later, which is how you show where windows are located. You show by their center line rather than by one side. So they show that, so that's 11 feet from either side. So those shorter dimensions come on the inside of that overall dimension. You'll notice everywhere it's that way. See here down at the bottom, you've got a 32 is that long thing, and then the smaller dimensions that make up the segments are further in toward the house. So, you know, if you're building this garage, you go, it's 22 feet wide outside of wall. So that's given you. Center lines for the windows are given. There's nothing really unusual about that. Let's see if we can find a dimension that okay, here's one. Say you want to know the width of this dining room. Can everybody see that? From the outside of the wall to the outside of the wall. Now it's not, oh darn, it is given. There's 13. Say we don't have that 13. And we're looking at these dimensions because these go down to the wall. So we could add all these together. This is interesting. Add those together. Oh yeah. So that would give us these extension lines right here, right? That's what these are called. Notice the extension lines don't touch the building, because if they touch the building, you would think they were an object line with a continuation of the room somehow, or a room below it or something like that. So they never, these extension lines never touch the building. They always stop a little bit short. So this extension line is on the outside of this wall, and this extension line is on the outside of this wall. So the sum of these three, since they don't have a total above it, the outside to outside dimension would be the sum of these three, right? So we could add those up. It would be 8, 13, 14. No, that doesn't make sense. 8. Oh, 8 and 5 is 13, 9. Yeah. Okay. So sometimes they don't give you the right dimension you want, so you have to find it on the plan somewhere else. So you could find it by adding these three, or you could take your ruler, your scale, to a 1/4 inch. Down here it says 1/4 inch to a foot. So usually at the designation of the plan, first floor plan, it'll have the scale, but they also put the scale over here. This one says as noted. Usually they'll put the scale there too. But anyway, they've got it here. So we know it's a 1/4 inch. So we could take our 1/4 inch scale and measure across here. And we'd have to do that because it's not listed what that is. This says 13. And then we have to see, well, okay, is that a 5.5 inch wall and see where that is? It's not clear that this is in line with this wall here, because this is a thinner wall. See how this is thinner than this wall? You see that?
Yeah.
So this line along the inside of the wall may not be the line on that inside of the wall. So that 13 feet that's across, where is it? Right here. Oh, right here it is. But sometimes, you know, the measurements are slightly to different areas. And so you might want to just take your scale and make sure that whole thing is the sum of those. So those are places where you need your scale. Sometimes you can subtract or add dimensions to find what you need. Other times it's just easier to take your scale and measure it out yourself.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
I've noticed on most of the plans that I've looked at and houses I worked on, the plans say, and I'm looking right now, do not scale from this drawing design.
Yeah.
Is that just to cover the architect's, you know?
Well, yes, but that's really a piss poor way to do plans. Because then you cannot scale. So sometimes printers, like when you take a set of plans and you have it copied, sometimes those copiers change the dimension just a little bit. If you go to like Tri-County, theirs don't, because they deal with architects and contractors all the time. But if, say, you went to what is it, FedEx, they have those big copying machines. Anybody ever seen those at FedEx?
Yeah.
So you can do your own copies. Those may indeed not copy truly. I don't know. I've copied there, but I can't remember. So, but that's really not professional for an architect to not do an exact copy off the original blueprint. You know, keeping the dimensions the same, because as a builder, you really need those. You really need to be able to scale.
I found them to be accurate, but maybe it's just a boilerplate thing they put in just to make sure they're not liable if you make a mistake or something.
Yeah. So you were able to, so you found them usable that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. It must be I don't, you know, we'll look at plans, but I haven't seen that in plans.
I emailed you a plan over just a little bit ago with it. You can look at it for a project we're working on now.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Patrick, how do you know which scale you're supposed to use to
So
on the plan?
do you see my arrow down at the bottom of the page?
Okay.
So usually, not always, and we'll look at variations, but usually they'll put what this plan is of at the bottom like this, first floor plan, and then they'll put the scale there. Sometimes they don't label these, and the only place they label them is on the right. This one's different because this is that educational set, but sometimes they'll label them on the right, which is a pain in the ass because then you're not sure. Some of the plans look very similar, like foundation plans look like floor plans because the foundation follows the walls. So, you know, so it's really not great if they don't make it really obvious. They should put the name and the scale right where you can't miss it. But they'll always have it on the page. So you can't use your scale to confirm these because these prints aren't when Tri-County put them on a zip drive, it altered the scale. If you take a set of plans into Tri-County Retrographics, they will copy that set and make a second set that's exactly like the first with the scale. But when they put them onto a zip drive, they have to reduce them a little bit. And the procedure changes the dimensions. When I looked at every plan we got back from them to see if maybe one of them was to scale, so you could just put your scale on the screen and measure it, and they were all just slightly off, all of them. Now, does anybody have a computer? When you get, do me a favor. When you get, put any of the sets of plans on your computer. I mean, you know, call them up and see up here, there's a plus and minus scale up at the top. Do you see that? Hello?
It's
black bar.
behind your bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see the plus?
No.
No, there's a black bar.
Oh, you can't see that?
Yeah, that whole area is blacked out.
Got a black bar. Yeah.
Oh, how do we? Well, anyway, you can get the set of plan up on your own. And at the top, there's a plus and minus, which reduces or increases the size, but it does it by 10% increments. So there's also on the bar above that, there's a little minus in a magnifying glass, and that's also to reset, but they go by 10% increments. And I noticed that I went through all the drawings the other day, and all of the drawings are like 3% different, like 83% of the actual size. And if you can't go to 83 because your machine only goes 80 to 90, then you're stuck. I can take mine with my hand. I have a touch screen, and I can reduce it with my hand to 83. It's very difficult. It takes a long time, and you if you don't have a touch screen, you can't do that. So I'm kind of disappointed in that, but we didn't have any choice. To get these on a screen, we had to get a zip drive from a company that could do it from prints, and this is what we got. So it's not the end of the world. The best thing is, if any of you have plans, some of you are working in construction or masonry or whatever, if you can get a set of plans from work, yeah. If you can get a set of plans from work, or you have some you've saved in your home for some reason, use those and measure with your scale and practice. That's the way you learn how to use that scale. If I was in a class, I'd have you measure all these things with me to make sure you could do it. But because the reproductions are not exact, you can't do it on the screen, but you could do it on a real set, because it would be a set that someone uses and uses a scale on them. Who thinks they have a set of plans at home?
I got it.
John, yeah, I thought you might. Yeah, Marcos does. Okay. Yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. But the main thing is to, you can just draw a bunch of odd length lines on a piece of paper. In fact, that's what I'll do for the homework assignment, instead of asking you a question. I'll write it in the assignment, but this is what it's going to be. Draw 6 lines of different lengths on a page of white paper, just random lengths from little to long. And then measure each one, and next to the line, put the scale, 1/4 inch scale, and then the length you get. And you can use any scale on any of the lines, but vary the scales, okay? In fact, use a different scale for each of the 6. So you'll have practice measuring a line with 6 scales and seeing if you get the right length. Okay? That sounds like a good homework assignment for the week. And I'll write that, I'll put that in words on your module assignment section. So for next week, we're going to be looking at, I believe, what is our magic schedule say? It says site plans and floor plans. So I will send you tomorrow the handout for site plans. It'll be set 4. And what's interesting is none of the books that I get this information from has a unit on floor plans, which I find really disturbing. So we'll have to just look at the plans we have. We can get it all from there. But it's so weird that they don't have a chapter on the major plan in a set of plans. So I'll just send you the one on the plot plan, site plan. Look that over, do the blog discussion. I'll post that tonight or tomorrow. And then do that scale page of lines that you're going to measure with your scale, right? And I'll put that on the assignment. So yeah, and then we get into framing plans, which is really interesting because if you're carpenters, that's the bread and butter. And we'll do a framing overview for people who haven't done any framing. And then we get sections and elevations, and those are really fun to work with. So yeah, once we start doing plans now, it'll be more real. But we got to, learn the lines and stuff ahead of time. So I think we're good to go. But we'll go over that again next week. Hopefully the people, the other new people are 2 or 3, well, 19, that makes 8 people didn't make it. Okay, so I'm gonna take roll and then we're gonna go home, okay? So, Miguel Barbosa. He's here. Jesus is here. Alex here. Stephen Crook, did you make it? Donna didn't make it. Hamar was here. Dalen Jackson, are you here? Marcos Lopez was here. Colby was here. Hugo was here. Eric Mendez Garcia was here, right? Eric? Oh, yeah.
Here.
Yeah, sorry. Dylan Mitchell was here, right? Yeah. Then neither Nolasco was here. Duke Overbach was not here, right? Duke, you're not here, are you? Andrew Pacheco. Brandon was here, right?
here.
Yeah. Jackson was here. D'Angelo was here. John was here. Michael Silva, you were here, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jose Silva Nunez, you were here. John Tapia was here. Johnny Vasquez, were you here? Eric Vega, I didn't see you either. Patty Wolfgram, no show, huh? Okay, and Jacob was here. Now here's the thing. You guys who have been at City College before probably hear your teachers bellyache about this. But I'm going to drop the people who didn't show twice. I'm going to check my drop box. Let's see. When's January 26th?
Next week.
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday?
That's next Tuesday. Right?
I thought it was the 25th.
Yeah, it's Tuesday.
Well, if it says last day to drop with a refund, January 26th, does that mean they can drop on the 26th?
I believe so.
So I'll wait for next week on the ones who just added because they haven't been twice. Next week will be their second time. And then if they're not here next week, I'm dropping them. The ones who didn't show at all, like we've got several, I'm going to drop. No, but here's the thing. If they come back and say, oh, I had a family emergency, I had to go to Minnesota and I still want to take the class, I can restore them to the class, but it's freaking a lot of work for me. I don't like doing that. I got stuff to do. So I have to go through this whole thing to restore those guys. So that's why I want you guys to think about teachers. And I sure as hell hope a lot of you become teachers. So you'll know what this is like. And, just try to be considerate in your life. And sometimes you don't know that you're causing work for someone. That's totally legitimate. That's why I'm telling you what teachers go through and that, try to make things easier for them. I've got 27 students when every other one's out and coming in late and, it's confusing. So anyway, that's what I'm going to do. So some of those probably will drop. I don't know. It's a big class. We'll see. How about you guys? Any questions this week? You just want to go home, huh?
I'm already home.
Come on. So you're getting it, right? It's not that hard so far.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, keep going. The hardest part in this whole thing is learning to read the scales, believe it or not. Everything else is just straightforward information. So as soon as I'm sure all of you have mastered that, then we'll just cruise, and it'll be pretty easy. The test, I'm going to tell you what's on them, so those won't be hard. So it'll be fun. We're going to do a little drawing later in the class. Drawing at home, sketching. Ooh, yeah. Okay, and you guys, one of you guys was a either a grader or was interested in grading plans. I'm not who it was now. And I don't have a lot. You'll see next week what I have for grading because it's part of the site plan lesson. And I don't know how I can get much more or if I want to because it's so specialized. But maybe that person will know something about grading and can contribute to the class. That would be great. You know what I mean by grading? You know, land has to be contoured. So I'm going to show you how to read contour lines and that's about it. But if the person that was interested in grading, if they've been doing grading, they can inform us about it. Maybe we'll learn something. That'd be cool, huh? Running a tractor around the hills grading. Hasn't every kid wanted to do that? At least every boy wanted to do that in their life. Drive those big old tractors. Heck yeah. All right. So if there's no more questions, how about Katie and Lindsay, do you have any questions for me?
Just if you wouldn't mind to send set 4 along to us, that would be fantastic.
Let me write that down. Set. Do you want me to send all of them to you? Do you have the ones so far?
Yes, we got the ones you sent so far and would love to just be on whatever your email list
Yes.
is. Let's do it
Yeah.
as we can.
Okay. I have thought about doing that, but it's good to remind me because I will forget sometimes. So yeah,
Thank you.
you will get those, sure. Thanks for doing your work, you guys. Appreciate it. Okay, I think we're good. You guys go and get some dinner and clear your minds for tomorrow. And I will see you next week. I'll send some handouts during the week, okay? Look for them.
All right.
And John, I'll try to post those in the Canvas. All right, guys. Adios.
Thank you.
See you.
Okay, see you later.
All right, we'll see you. All right.
All right.
Good night.